Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Julie, and in today's video, I'm going to be doing 10 DIY gift ideas. Now, the projects that I am creating in today's video are specifically for my kids' teachers. If you do not know, I have 4 kids, and that is lots of teachers. So these are things that I have been making for years and giving out as gifts, and they have been very popular. And most of them are not even really Christmas themed, because I like to give gifts that people can use year round. So I hope this inspires you not only for Christmas, but for year-around gift giving. I think you're going to enjoy this video. Let's get started on these projects. Hobby Lobby sells these really great wooden tissue boxes. They are $8.99, and of course you can get them when they are 40% off. Michael's also has the square ones. However, I can never find those in the store, but they are available to order online. Since this is for a teacher's classroom, I decided to go with a little bit of a brighter, funner color. So I am painting it with DIY paint in the color Apothecary. But you can use any kind of paint with this. It does not need to be chalk paint. When you are painting the bottom, make sure you pull it all the way out and paint it and let it dry separately. That way your pieces do not stick together. After the paint is dry, I'm going to lightly sand it. I really don't want to distress the piece. I'm mainly just sanding it since I use chalk paint. I want to just smooth everything out. But these tissue boxes also look great painted and distressed. Now I'm going to personalize the tissue box for my daughter's teacher. I just printed her name out on my computer, and now I'm going to use carbon paper to transfer my words onto the tissue box. You want to make sure you use painter's tape to attach your piece of paper to your piece, because you don't want the tape to pull up your paint. Now I'm just going to use a pencil, and I'm going to trace over the letters that are on the paper. Then I'm going to take my Sharpie painter's pen and just paint over the letters. This is my favorite type of Sharpie pen, and all the products that I love and use will be linked in the description below. This makes a great gift for anybody. You can just paint it to match their decor. I think this would be so cute in a nursery. You could paint it to go with the theme that they are going with. And even if you don't know how to personalize it and hand letter, or you don't have a Cricut machine, you could just paint a tissue box, and I think that would make a great gift. For this next project, you're going to need some blocks of wood, and you're going to want some pictures printed out on some white cardstock paper. You can get this at Walmart or any store. Now, this has been by far my most popular gift over the past few years. I take a picture of a very popular or recognizable place in town. I did the Hernando Town Square, but I've done churches and even schools work. You just can personalize it to whoever you are giving the gift to. I also like to add the location on the ornament, so I find having a nice sky white background works and looks best on these ornaments. Once all your paper is cut out, you are ready to Mod Podge it to the wood. I am using cut down fence boards to the exact size that I want this ornament to be, but you could use whatever wood you have available. There are also plenty of pre-cut options at the craft stores, and you can just print out your paper ornaments to fit the size of the wood that you have. Once I have the Mod Podge down, I like to use a paper towel to push the paper down. That way I'm not rubbing Mod Podge over the top, because it will mess up your ink if you rub it. So using a paper towel is best. And then I like to turn it over and let it dry flat. We are using cardstock, which is thicker, so it takes a little bit more to get the cardstock to go flat. So I like to turn them over and let them dry completely before I go back and Mod Podge the top. I have spent so many hours over the past few Christmases making these ornaments, so I found this to be the easiest, quickest way. I'll just have a pile of them and then stack them up, let them dry, and then move on to the next step. Once your stack is dry, you can turn it over and start Mod Podging the front. It is fine to paint the Mod Podge on, just do not rub it with your finger because like I said, it will start to mess up the ink, and I like to have all my brush strokes go in the same direction. Even though I'm using flat Mod Podge paint, it definitely is a cleaner look to keep all your brush strokes going the same way. I'll give my kids an entire stack of these so they can give them out not only to their teachers, but also to the amazing support staff at school. And if you love adding ornaments to your presents, this is the perfect little customized ornament to add to your gifts. You want to make sure your Mod Podge is fully dry before you move on to this step. I like to sand the edges. It gives it kind of a hand-torn look and just gives it that rustic detail that I love on these ornaments. I'm using 220 grit sandpaper and I am only hitting the edges. Now it's time to turn them into usable ornaments. So I'm just taking a small drill bit and I'm going to drill a hole in the center of my wood. You do not need to go very far down. I would say about 1/4 of an inch. I like to use the twine from the Dollar Tree because it is very thin. So I'm just going to cut off a few pieces and then I'm going to hot glue them onto my ornaments. I don't know what this tool is called. It's an electrical tool that I took from my husband, but it is a perfect size for this job. So I just add a little bit of hot glue, then I put the string over the hole and then I push it in. And then you just let it dry. I tie it up and it is ready to go. I don't like to make these overly Christmas because I know a lot of people hang them up year around. For this next project, I am going to be using paperback books. You can find these so cheaply at any thrift store or garage sale. And you are simply just going to pull the paper covers off of the book. And then you want to paint the spines. I am using chalk paint, but really any type of paint works for this. When I do book stacks, I like to choose 3 different size books and stack them from biggest to smallest. But I've also done book stacks where I use all the same size books, and that also looks great. So just whatever kind of books you can find, that's what I would go with. This is going to be a teacher themed book stack. So I just picked out 3 words that I typed out on my computer and now I'm going to cut them out and then we're going to trace them on these books. I'm going to cut off a smaller piece of the carbon paper. That way I don't have to worry about that huge piece. It just makes it a whole lot easier. And I'm going to take my pencil and just trace over the word. Now, if you do not feel like this is something that you can do, on the next project, I'm going to show you a very simple way to make these book stacks without hand lettering. So I'm just taking my fine point painter's pen. You can find this at Walmart, and I am just painting over my letters. I thrifted this wreath for $3 specifically because I wanted all the apples on it. I thought that was a good deal for the amount of apples on this wreath. So I'm just going to cut off a few apples to use on top of my book stacks. You could definitely leave the apples red, but I want to paint them a more neutral color. That way, if the teacher wanted to bring it home and put it in her house, it would definitely go with their decor. So I am using gray chalk paint and baking soda. I'm using about half and half mixture, and we are going to turn this red apple into a faux cement apple. I covered the apple in 2 coats of this paint, letting it dry in between coats. Then to give it that faux cement look, you want to add some white wax. You simply brush it on and then wipe it off, and it makes this red apple look like an amazing faux cement apple, which will be the perfect embellishment on top of our teacher book set. I like to glue my books together just to keep them in place, so I'm simply just using Elmer's stick glue to do this. For the book that is on the top, I just like to find a page that is full of words and I pull off all the extra pages. Now, my book stacks have different color books. If that bothers you, you could definitely find the same color books. I just choose them randomly. It doesn't matter to me. It kind of, adds to the farmhouse look of the book set. I just took the Dollar Tree twine and wrapped it around the book set a bunch of times, and now I'm using some greenery. This is garland that I like to buy at Hobby Lobby, and you can just pull it apart and it looks great on these book stacks. And then I'm just going to add in my apple. Now my apple had wire on it already, which makes it perfect, but I have used apples that didn't have wire, and you can simply just hot glue some twine to the bottom and then tie it onto your book stack. All right, now let me show y'all a book stack that requires no hand lettering. So we're going to start off the same. We're going to take 3 books and we're going to pull off the paper jackets. On my computer, I typed out what I wanted my book stack to say, and I printed it on regular computer paper. And you want to make sure to leave a little bit of room in between your words so you have space to put them on the entire spine of your book. You're going to Mod Podge the spine of your book, and then you're going to put your paper words on top of the spine. You do have time to move it around, so just make sure that your words are centered on the spine. Once your bottom layer of Mod Podge is dry, you can apply a top layer of Mod Podge and also let that dry. And then I find it easier to take scissors to cut off the sides. You want to cut off all of that excess paper. Then to cut off that top layer of your paper, I like to use a corkback ruler and an X-Acto knife to get a nice clean cut. I embellished this book stack with the same twine and greenery that I used on the previous one, and I decided to add a little bit of lace. You can add lace, ribbon, whatever you want to go with the personality of the person that you are giving this gift to. For these next few projects, we are going to be using wooden fence boards, which is my go-to wood to use for signs and lots of other projects. You can buy it brand new at the hardware store, or if you know somebody taking down a fence, you could get it for free. In this project, we are creating a sign. So I cut 2 pieces of fence board 18 inches long. I'm going to attach my 2 pieces of fencing together using 2 scrap pieces of wood. I am using 5mm underlayment. Whatever scrap wood you have laying around will work fine, but I do prefer to use thinner pieces of wood for this. That way it doesn't stick too far off the wall when it is hanging. I'm going to use wood glue and my brad nailer to secure the pieces in place. I am going to paint my sign using antique white ready-to-use paint from Walmart in a flat finish. The flat finish gives you kind of the same effect as chalk paint, but is much cheaper than chalk paint, and I find using this on my wood signs, I can still distress them if I want to using an orbital sander. On this piece, I decided just to very lightly distress the edges. Now I'm going to take my design that I made on my computer specifically to fit this size wood. I use a professional design program to create all of my signs, but there are plenty of free options. I know a lot of people use Canva if y'all want to check that out. I put my carbon paper down, and now I'm just going to trace the words with a pencil, and that will transfer my image onto the wood. Now, if you have a vinyl cutting machine, you can definitely use it to make signs just like this. However, I have never had one, and this is just the way that I've always created my signs. Before you pull the paper completely off, you want to double check and make sure you actually transferred everything. At the end, I noticed that I totally forgot the word in. Luckily, I was able to easily go back and add it in. That was a rookie mistake. Make sure you have transferred everything before pulling the paper completely off. I am using my water-based Sharpie paint pen with a medium tip to paint on the words of this sign. I love the quote on this sign. I think it is perfect for a preschool or a daycare or even as a baby shower gift. You could even add an extra board at the end with some clips where they could hang some baby pictures. That would be really sweet. I am not going to paint over the words Winnie the Pooh. I'm just going to leave that exactly like it looks right now. To create a hanger for the sign, I am going to be using this very neutral ribbon. I am simply just going to staple it onto the back of the sign, but you could also add picture hanging hardware to your sign if you wanted. For this project, we are going to be using one piece of fence board that I cut down to 9 inches. I wanted to fit a 4x6 picture, so that's kind of how I figured out the size. Now, since I'm using newer fence boards, we do not like the color, so I'm going to add some watered down antiquing wax to this board, and that's going to give it a nice aged look. Now, that is definitely more my style. I cut down these 2 smaller pieces and painted them white and distressed them already. And I am going to add them to each side of this board. It just gives it a much cuter look. I love the two-tone look of white and natural wood. I am using my brad nailer to attach these pieces together. For these projects that I use a brad nailer, if you do not have one, you could always just use wood glue and clamp it. Just make sure you let your wood glue dry overnight. I am stapling a piece of ribbon to the back to create a hanger. Make sure you add your hanger on the back before this next step. So now we're going to attach the clips to our wood. I like to have the clips attached to the size picture that is going to be going in this picture hanger. I just find it's easier to center the clips and make sure that they are in the correct placement this way. And then I'm just going to hot glue the clips to the piece of wood. We are going to be creating another sign. This one is going to be an 11 by 11 square. So I'm just going to attach these 2 boards together using wood glue and my brad nailer, just like I did on the other ones. This sign is going to have several layers. So the first thing I want to do is age the wood. So I'm just going to apply the Waverly antiquing wax and then let it dry. It's all dry now and it looks perfect. So I created my design on my computer. For now, the only thing that I want to outline is the letter F. To outline bigger letters, you could also get those chipboard letters at Hobby Lobby or Michael's, or I think Walmart might even have them, and you can use those to outline bigger letters. That's what I used to use for my big porch signs because it was so much easier to take these bigger letters, place them on the board, outline them, and then paint them. Now what we're going to do is just take that antique white flat paint and we're going to outline the letter F. So I want to go on the outside, not the inside. So we're going to keep that F, the natural wood. So I just have a good small angle brush and I'm going to go around the entire thing. And then once I have all the details done, I'm going to take my bigger brush and paint it. Once my paint is dry, I'm going to take my orbital sander and 220 grit sandpaper. I do want to distress this sign a little bit more. So I'm going to go over the edges and the entire piece. It does look really great with just the letter, but we're going to take it one step further and add their last name. Originally, I had it designed where this was in the middle, but once I saw the F on the boards, I decided it would look better towards the bottom. So I'm just going to take my carbon paper and trace out the letters. Then I'm going to go back with my black paint pen and go over the words. Then I'm going to add a ribbon hanger just like I did on the other pieces. I think this sign would also look great sitting on a shelf with an easel if you wanted to add an easel to this gift instead of a hanger. I'm going to cut 2 pieces of fence board down 13 inches on my miter saw, and then I'm going to attach them together the same way I did on the previous projects. I'm going to be making an oyster cross. Oysters are something that are popular in our area. So if you have something that is popular in your area that you can make a cross out of, people love that and it makes a really great gift. I'm going to attach a sawtooth picture hanger on the back of this, and then I'm going to paint the entire piece with the antique white paint and distress the edges with my orbital sander and 220 grit sandpaper. Now we are ready to put the oysters on. First thing is you want to make sure that you are putting your cross the correct way. So check the back, see where your hanging hardware is. And I use Gorilla Glue hot glue sticks to attach my oysters to my wood. It does hold up very well. And when I'm picking out my oysters, I like to do a longer one for the top and the sides, and then pick smaller ones for the bottom part. And then you can just kind of play with it and pick your placement before you start gluing it down. Now, when you add the glue, you don't want to move it around too much. You want to hold it in place and let it dry before you move on to the next oyster. These next steps are totally optional, just depending on the look you're going for. I personally like my oyster crosses with a high gloss finish and some gold trim. Now, the reason I don't spray my oysters ahead of time is because I don't know which one I'm going to use. Usually I make these crosses in bulk, and it just depends on the placement that I want for each individual oyster. So that is why I spray these after they're already together. I don't want the sprays to get on the wood. I just want to get them on the oyster. And then I'm going to take this high gloss paint that I purchased from Amazon, and I'll put the link in the description below, and I spray it straight onto the oysters, and it gives it this beautiful glossy glass looking finish. The last step is to use this gold paint pen. This is my favorite gold paint pen. It is really easy to use, and I love the bright color gold that comes out, and it's also very, very shiny. I've used some gold paint pens, and it is a very dull gold. So I really like the gold color on this paint pen, and all you're going to do is just run it along the edges of your oyster cross, and it just really makes the oysters pop. So this is the last step, and this project is done. For this next project, I am going to be using a pickle jar, but really any kind of round jar you have will work. And I'm going to take some floral foam and just push it into my pickle jar. Now I'm going to take just a regular brown paper bag and stick the jar inside. There is still a good bit of room around the jar, so I'm just going to take plastic grocery bags and just stuff it around my jar. This will give your jar extra cushion and also make it look better. It looks better when the brown paper bag looks full. Then I'm going to take a rubber band and put it around the top of the jar, and this will just keep everything in place. If you watched my last Christmas video, I made these and put Christmas trees in them, and I love them so much that I really wanted to make some for gifts, but I wanted to put some floral in it that you could leave out year round. So luckily my Walmart already had these lavender picks out. I'm just going to stick an entire one in right in the middle, and then I'm going to take the other one apart and just start filling in the edges. I want to cover up that rubber band, so I'm just going to take some Dollar Tree twine and wrap it around a few times, enough to cover up the rubber band. This would have been much easier if I would have did it before I put the lavender in, so I definitely suggest that. It kept getting stuck in the lavender. Now you could absolutely leave it like this. It looks great as is, or if you have stamps and you want to stamp something on it like I did the Christmas trees, you could definitely do that. But I just printed out some cute little labels just on some regular printer paper, and I'm going to Mod Podge this onto my paper bag. I just applied Mod Podge to the back of the paper and applied it, and I did not go over the front of it with Mod Podge because I didn't want to get any Mod Podge on the brown paper bag. But now that I'm editing it, I think it might be a good idea to just go ahead and Mod Podge the entire thing just to protect your paper and the brown paper bag, since you are giving it as a gift. The Mod Podge will seal the entire piece and keep it from getting damaged from water or stains. for this project, I am going to be using cypress wood, but you can use any wood that is local to your area, or you can get stuff from your local hardware store. I would stick to wood that was 1 inch to 1/2 inch thick for this particular project. We are going to be making breadboards, and I just use that stick to find the middle of the board, and I'm going to draw one side of the handle, and then I'm going to take my jigsaw and cut it out. This multi-pack of jigsaw blades is very handy to have, so you have all kind of different options available to you. On this particular project, I am using the scroll saw blade. I don't like to use a template when making breadboards. I like to freehand every single one of them. That way each and every breadboard is unique. I cut out one side of the handle, and then I take that piece and trace it on the other side. I found this to be the best way to get a symmetrical handle on both sides. Sometimes I keep the bottom just straight, but on this one I decided to round out the bottom. So I'm just going to do that with my jigsaw as well. Then I'm going to take a larger drill bit and just drill a hole in the center of the handle. I'm going to take my orbital sander and some high grit sandpaper and just round out all the edges on this breadboard. I'm going to do both the back and the front of this piece, just making sure everything is smooth and rounded out. If you want to seal your breadboard so they are food safe, you could use something like this hemp oil, or you can use a butcher block oil. There are many different options. I don't always seal my breadboards because I really like the natural look of the wood, so I'm just going to put this hemp oil on one of my boards. And if you created a board out of new wood and you wanted it to look old, you could apply something like the watered down Waverly Antiquing Wax mixture to give it that aged look. The past few years, these breadboards have been such a popular gift, especially if you can use wood that is local to your area. People just love having those sorts of special things in their homes. To finish off my breadboards, I like to wrap the handle in twine and then clip off a piece of greenery and have it hanging from the twine. It just gives these breadboards a cute little touch, whether they are going to be actually using them in their kitchen or just use them in their home as a piece of decor. Alright guys, I hope y'all enjoyed today's video and was inspired to DIY some of your own Christmas gifts. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you thought was the best project that I created today to give to someone else. I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and I will see y'all in the next video.